Diving now right into the main dish for today, our topic of conversation. And what we are looking at today is a very sensitive aspect, something which we have almost all of us have witnessed. We're talking about wars and conflict. Before now, Cameroon was not an example or too much of an example when it concerns wars and conflict. We were regarded as a peaceful nation, but 7 years back, something started in the country, in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and up to date, we are still witnessing a crisis. But just before we look at the case of the Anglophone crisis, we shall speak on a general perspective, even how detrimental wars and conflicts are to the environment. And I will not be speaking on these alone, as rather I have experts with me whom I have invited to come throw more light on this issue and of course have this amazing discussion. The first person I'll start on my left hand side as this very gentleman who is beside me, who is quite knowledgeable about the field of environment. He has over 12 years of experience in environmental conservation. He has a BSc in environmental science and a master's in forest science. He is the founder of MEGWA, a non-governmental organization here in Boya that seeks for environmental conservation. And for what I know, he has been involved in kids, training them on how to be environmental conscious, to be environmental soldiers. And of course, I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Peter. Hello.
Hello, JABI.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Very, very great.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you sure you're very, 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 very great?
But I have cold.
Okay.
So it's a little bit disturbing my voice, but I'm fine.
All right, we pray the code does not interfere with today's program. And by my right now, I have another talkie person whom I invited to come to the studio. They call us talkie, so of course, we'll own the title. He is an environmental journalist with years of accumulated experience on the field of environmental conservation. Particularly, he works within the fields of biodiversity laws. He visits the forest, of course, protecting forest species and animal species. He has years of experience, as Ella highlighted, in this field. And of course, he has worked with NGOs as Aerodev, and he has written quite a number of papers as concerned to some animal species, especially the Goliath frog that we have right there in Mount Maninguba. I'm talking about the one and only Shimo Tross. Hello to you, Shimo.
Hi, JABI.
How are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you.
Which forest are you coming from today?
Sorry?
Which forest are you coming from today?
Well, I think 2 weeks ago I was in the Douala Idea National Park.
Okay.
We were doing some work there, trying to lay transects to understand the species, to understand the species diversity of the forest, and of course the forest itself.
All right, great work out there. And of course, just before we put highlight on that work, let's start first with our topic of conversation. Let me get back to you, Mr. Peter. We're speaking today about wars and conflicts and the effect they have on the environment. Now, to the people who are watching out there, maybe you'd want to tell them how really those conflicts affect the environment, because most of the times we look at the human loss, the humanitarian side of it, but what about the environmental side of it?
Yeah, JABI, thank you very much for this topic. I think I will begin by first of all defining what the environment is. The environment is actually everything that we find around us.
Okay.
So you see it's very ambiguous, it's very big, and practically these wars take place in the environment, and the aftermath, the effects that it leaves, it's not very good. Often we have the soil on which the wars take place. You have jarring of the soil, changing of the form of the soil, which might not harbor or still grow the plants normally as it should. We have chemicals that have been used, which of course leads to pollution. We have this wars being fought in the forest, displacing animals, destroying their habitats. Just the noise, first of all, of the heavy equipment.
That's pollution already.
Yeah, not just pollution, but it's also create a kind of disturbance.
Okay.
You know, these animals have been living there for some time. There is a kind of environment they are used to. So when they have now this kind of environment where there's so much noise, it disturbs them. And sometimes they will have to migrate to other suitable areas. Yeah, so the effects are enormous.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ako. Let me get to you, Shimo. Mr. Ako has mentioned the soil degradation disturbing the peace of the animals. Now let's look at it, connecting it more to the humans. How does war and conflicts affecting the environment affect us in the long run?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I first of all want to start with the military strategy that is put in place in the war in question. You know, there are several military strategies that are used by the combating parties, and the most devastating war strategy to the environment is the scorched earth strategy, in which everything is destroyed by one of the parties to hamper the advancement of the enemy forces.
Okay.
So, with this type of warfare, which has been witnessed in the Second World War, especially in the Russian front, the Vietnam War, and some other wars which I cannot mention here, they're very, very devastating to the environment. And now coming back to your question, where you asked the effects how the effects of war in the environment
turn back to us.
To us, yeah, I think that the effects are very enormous, because when these chemicals, for example, get down or litter around the atmosphere, right, there is a tendency that we are going to inhale this chemical, and of course will affect our health. The events in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where the chemical bomb was dropped there by the US, is very telling. And it's not only that, because there are times that the warring parties use landmine, right? And the effects also go down, affect the groundwater. That's groundwater pollution. Yeah, and the effects on human beings are enormous. And it's a shame, right? Because the environment is more or less a silent casualty when it comes to war. Nobody talks about the environment. I want to believe human beings are very important, but then they need an environment
to exist in.
So the casualty and the silent one of that is always the environment, and the effects can live with us for years. Yeah, even the Second World War, some of the records of the war have not been cleared right now, and they are still a big menace to the environment.
All right, thank you very much, Shimo. Now let's try to contextualize it to our own local context, so the people watching at home can better understand what we are talking about. Mr. Ako, looking at the case of the Anglophone crisis, it's 7 years on and still ongoing that we have been plagued by this conflict in the two English-speaking regions of the country. We have heard several reports as to the humanitarian crisis going on, how it has rendered many homeless, killed many, some have become refugees, IDPs, others have lost their properties. But now, the context of the environment, aside the humanitarian point of view, how is the Anglophone crisis adding to destroy our environment?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question again. First of all, the Anglophone crisis has had a lot of effects on the ecosystem, especially the forest ecosystem. We know that this is where, especially the so-called Amber Boys, this is where they reside, and you can imagine what takes place in that forest. There is a kind of degrading the forest, illegal harvesting of timber. We've heard of such stories. Okay. We've heard of illegal exploitation of resources. There's just a lot that is happening in there, both for the fauna and the flora. Okay. The fauna is being destroyed.
When you speak of fauna and flora, for the population watching us out there, you may want to simplify it.
Okay, the fauna simply talks of the animal species.
Okay.
And then the flora, just like flower,
the plant,
talks about the plants.
Okay.
So building artificial homes or temporary homes in the forest, that is already kind of creating fragments within the forest ecosystem. And this is, destroying the balance of that ecosystem. And like I explained earlier, the animal species, their habitats are destroyed, and so we don't know where these species are migrating to, which means in the near future we might not have certain species that normally occupy these ecosystems. And we know that Cameroon normally have a lot of these species that are particular to just
Cameroon.
Cameroon.
Okay. Shimo, what about the case that people leave their homes and their farmlands and they travel out of town? They leave their homesteads or their towns for years and they have not gone back. Those farmlands are there, or those species are there. Does it have any effects, or does it bother us in any way?
We have to also know where these people are going to. Are they relocating to the forest? But let me come from this perspective, right, and also key on from what he was saying. I did an article about this, and in the course of my research, I found out that 85% of people living in rural areas, right, in the Anglophone regions, have most of them have relocated to the forest.
Okay.
And this forest consists of what? Protected areas. We took them national parks, reserves, sanctuaries, and the rest. And a classic case is that of the Tofala Hill Wildlife Sanctuary in the Libialem Highlands, in the Libialem division, let me put it that way, where a majority of people in the nearby villages and the state and the non-state armed group have relocated in this forest, and they are doing forest clearings for their temporary structures, and they're also killing animals. And I tell you what, this protected area, the Tofala Hill Wildlife Sanctuary, hosts the Nigeria Cameroon chimpanzee. This species is only found in Nigeria
and Cameroon.
in Cameroon, and one of the places it is found is the Tofala Hill Wildlife Sanctuary and part of the Takamanda National Park, just like the Cross River gorilla, which is also found only in Cameroon and Nigeria. And I think there are only about 60 of them existing.
Okay.
So it's a very complex situation, and if we do not take care of it, right, we may go to a situation whereby these species are extinct. They may extinct, or the better case of it, they migrate. For example, the situation where I'm talking about the Tofala Hill Wildlife Sanctuary, they may actually migrate to
neighboring Nigeria.
Neighboring Nigeria, which is a loss for us because we are going to lose tourism,
potentials
and all the like.
Now, what about the issue that some forests have become inaccessible, that even the forest guards cannot forest guards to protect the forest from poachers, and now they themselves fear going into the forest because those in quotes, the voices, have owned the forest?
Yeah, I think that is the most difficult part of it now, because literally conservation have stopped in particular protected areas in the Anglophone part of Cameroon. Almost stopped. You're talking about, I made mention of the Tofala Hill Wildlife Sanctuary. There's the Kimbi Fongum National Park in the northwest region of Cameroon, and a host of others. Now, how do conservation move or continue in places that are just so hostile? Some organizations, right, have been doing a lot of efforts to mitigate, to try to get into these protected areas by using the locals, but it is not as effective as compared to what used to happen when the crisis had not started. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ako, let me get to you. Shimo just mentioned one aspect, the conservation journey, the conservation era, because in as much as the environment is suffering from the conflicts and wars, there is equally one part of protecting the environment, that is the work of conservationists, which according to Shimo, it has dwindled or reduced over time because of the crisis. Now, aside the forest, I want to get from you, you have been working with about 12 years of experience now. The 7 years of the crisis fits in within that your 12 years. So what are some of the experiences that you've had, as a conservationist that you feel like, okay, you were hindered from doing your work because of the crisis?
Yeah, thank you very much again. I really want to congratulate him for still going to the field during this time, really going into the core areas.
We'll give him a badge.
Yeah. So you know me as training children. This is one of the strategies I adopted. When the crisis started, I had a project in Menji. I was supposed to do phase 1 and 2 of the project. I did just phase 1, and I had to write my donors.
Tell them there is no way.
And they too were very understanding, and they told me that they need me alive. If I'm not alive, I will not be able to do that work. So what I resorted to doing is focusing more on training these children around here in Boya, and also trying to work around Bakingili area. Yeah, some of these areas that are not very hostile, like seriously. I don't like yeah, these are some of the
You don't like people with one hand to be tampered with.
As much as we are conserving the environment, we are conserving ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, we tried to play the hero in 2020, and we went to a particular village in the Libialem division. We had finished from Minji. Minji is in Bamimbu subdivision. We have finished from sorry, not Minji, Magas. Maga is in Bambu subdivision. We had finished from there, so we continued our journey to Mongbi. That's how they call it, and I hope I pronounce it well. And it's a shame something terrible really happened, and I'm afraid I will not mention the details here, but they know that's one of the state one of the actors in the conflict, kind of, in quote, let me not mention it. So
were you guys harassed?
We kind of temporarily, held, and we came for the community. And we were planting trees on the Mamba Mutus. Mamba Mutus cuts across the northwest, the southwest, and the west regions. And this particular mountain happened to fall in some of these villages that are really, affected by the crisis. So it is a great risk for conservationists, and thank goodness that, Mount Cameroon, for example, is comparatively safer than all other protected areas and biodiversity hotspots in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Some, like the Kimi Fongo, for example, there is hunting like never before is going on there. And the interesting part of it is that as the park shares boundary with Nigeria, it is comparatively very easy for locals who have, for the most part, relocated to these protected areas, to harvest bushmeat and sell to neighboring Nigeria. And one of the species that is really touching me as far as this is concerned is the pangolin. This protected area, Kibifongum, happens to harbor pangolins, and pangolins are classified as endangered species. And that's, I use by IUCN, right? Endangered species means that, if we harvest them with that unsustainably, they may disappear.
Get into extinction.
And there are fears that this species pangolin in that area may likely get to local extinction. By local extinction, it will stop to exist in that particular area. Yeah, so it's very, very devastating, and there's also a particular type of tree there that, unfortunately, I cannot remember the name, that the locals are harvesting and selling to Nigerians, and Nigerians, as I heard, that's the story I heard from a researcher.
Okay.
I'm yet to confirm very well, but I believe in it. And Nigerians too are commercializing it to the Chinese.
Oh, wow.
So that is the effect of the war. But then look at what has happened. The government has created a commission to rebuild the crisis-affected regions.
Yeah, the reconstruction plan.
Absolutely. But then little is being talked about
the environment.
The environment.
That's true.
It's all about us
building the houses, of course, they're important.
They are very important. But then, what about the environment that these people live in? And if you allow me to go further some more,
Okay.
like we are here in Boya and Esakam, it cannot access
some areas.
Some areas, and there is open dumping, there is burning, and when this open dumping happens for a long time, nobody's clearing it, nobody's doing anything about it. It means that the refuge are decomposing and they leach into the ground and stain and pollute groundwater, even surface water, right? And we here survive by digging boreholes. It means that there's a particular time that in some areas where this has gone on for long, it means that we cannot dig boreholes there because the groundwater must have been polluted.
Yeah, and I remember even Mr. Ako when I think was it 2 years or 1 year after the crisis began, the town of Bamenda, the northwest region, was noted to have many garbage sites around because the waste management company workers, they were harassed and they could not access some particular sites, and even Boya became affected by this particular phenomenon.
Yeah, that's actually true. Not just that, also, some of the affected communities live and come to places where there's relative calm, like Boya. Is experiencing a lot of influx of people, IDPs, and this also poses a problem, a serious problem. If you pass around the streets of Moloko right now, almost all the gutter smells.
Yes. Malingo, for instance, just ahead of us is an example.
It all smells. That is, there's overcrowding in this town, and so the production rate of this waste has increased. And then it's come to, we don't know the mechanism of it is happening. They are not there regularly to clear this
waste off.
This waste, and so it constitutes a whole lot of problem. But then when Boya was just Boya, with the population it had, it was possible to manage this waste. I remember sometimes they will even sweep. They will carry the waste until there's no waste and they start sweeping the streets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the town was really clean. But these are some of the effects of the crisis that, like you said, the reconstruction plan is not taking into consideration.
The environment.
Conservation of the environment.
All right, and just speaking about the displacement of persons into major areas like Boya, or into major towns or safer towns like Boya, somebody mentioned, as was it last time, or was one of my previous editions, that due to the over-congestion, Shimo, it is also contributing to the aspect of climate change and even the many vehicles that we have along the roadside, the traffic and all of that, and that the pollution from the cars is a major problem. Yes, so I don't know if you guys can expatiate on it.
Yeah, basically the Boya ecosystem is now carrying more than it can somehow, and if we are talking about pollution, we have to start even from the very beginning of the chain, right? Or the population have increased. There are so many cars. It basically means that the fuel production somehow has to increase to meet the high demand.
Yeah.
And the cars and everything pollute the environment, and eventually they release these greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and all the rest, and it go into the atmosphere and form that blanket. And another aspect is that you made mention of wetlands, right?
Yeah.
But then there has been the invasion of wetlands as a result of the increase in the population of Boya. People have to survive, and wetlands are arguably, not even arguably, are the most productive ecosystem in the world because they have so many producers and they are very fertile. So there has been the invasion of wetlands, and wetlands also play a very big role in the mitigation of climate change.
Okay.
Because they also trap carbon dioxide, which is very, very important as far as fighting climate change is concerned. So we are invading the wetlands. We are. I mean, it's just so crazy, and the effects are just so multidimensional.
All right, just before we take on a jingle break, Mr. Ako, let me get back to you. We have shifted from the much red zone areas to over the a little bit safer areas. And now I want to get on the conservation efforts right here, even in the a little bit safer areas like Boya. For instance, on Monday there was sporadic shooting, and maybe on Tuesday everywhere just get quiet. People don't go out; they are scared to go out. How does this affect conservation?
Um, First, Boya is situated in a national park, and well, this means that as people are coming, we need more houses to accommodate these people. We need to encroach into the forest areas. Okay. And then the second part of your question, if I understood you correctly.
Because I think there was a time when you were supposed to be guests right here on High TV, and I proposed Monday, and you were like, no, you cannot come with these kids on Monday. Monday is not a good day because in quotes it is supposed to be a ghost town.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in that aspect, a lot of conservation activities, projects that are earmarked are not being implemented. So this is a long-term impact on conservation, which is a kind of a postponed impact, and it's really bad because a problem you postpone today, you don't know how you're going to receive it tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And in fact, all we can say here is that we should do everything we can to stop the crisis. Yeah, because a lot of things are just going wrong every day. Every day, a lot of things are going wrong. You know, at a point, I started asking myself a lot of questions. We are talking so much about conserving nature, conserving species. We don't talk so much about conserving humans.
And humans are a species as well. We are part of the biodiversity
Yeah,
chain.
for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. We are biodiverse. Yes. Nobody is really, you know, if I take a gun, go to the forest now and shoot an elephant, the way they will take it serious. It's not the same as I take a gun, God forbid. It's not the same like I take a gun and shoot you. You know, I was really disturbed. I had to ask myself a lot of questions. We had a situation in Bakingili. There is this human-elephant conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, conservationists are very much concerned about conserving the elephants. What about the humans?
The safety of the humans
The
in that
safety of the
conflict.
humans in that particular area. You go there, you hear their stories. You feel like crying.
But then let me come in. Yeah, the question of what about the humans? I think that the humans also are part of the problem because the area is part of the migration. the area has, for years been inhabited by elephants. They come now, they see crops. It's business as usual. The thing is, maybe they planted it for them and they eat them. Yeah, so we have to mainstream our development in such a way that we also take care of the needs of these animals. It's poor planning, because if we plan well, we wouldn't have had this current conflict between animals and elephants or any other animal species, and it's happening in the north all the time. So it's a shame, but we have to
Okay.
All
right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hako. Thank you very much, Mr. Shimo. I'll have to put the curtain on this one. We'll continue the conversation backstage because time is almost beckoning against us. We're taking a jingle break and we'll come back, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk on how we can adapt to these changing times that we find ourselves in, because it's 7 years on and we don't see, we're not looking at the possibility, or there is no a sign that maybe the crisis will end next year or next 2 months. So how can we as conservationists and as human beings adapt to these changing times, at the same time protecting our environment? My name is JABI. This is still the program Nature's Corner. We'll take on this jingle break and we'll come back. We continue with the program. I must say this is one of the best editions of the program that I have hosted. I'm hoping you are enjoying the program as well, and not just enjoying but catching glimpses of information here and there to fill your head, and not just to fill your head but equally to act on it. That is why we come here every Thursdays as from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. to educate you about some things happening around that concerns us, things especially of the environment, nature protection, that we should be worried about, or how we can solve some of these problems. Nature's Corner is a program you are watching, and of course, if you're just tuning in, we have been on for quite a while, and we are almost rounding up with the program. And of course, Shimo and Mr. Ako Peter have been talking about how the Anglophone crisis. So, first, from a general perspective, we began by saying how the wars and conflicts around the globe affects the environment. Then we narrowed it down to the Anglophone crisis, and of course, looking at it, zooming in to see detailing how it affects us. Shimo has shared quite a very touching story. How I'll use the word maybe harassed in quote. Temporarily kidnapped. How they were temporarily kidnapped when they went for conservation efforts in some parts of Libya Lem division. But of course, now we are asking the question: how do we adapt to these changing times? The crisis is still rocking on. Just last Monday, people were still killed, and it shows that even in 1 or 2 years to come, it may still continue. It is 7 years on. How do we adapt to these challenges? The people at the forefront of conservation who are risking their lives every day, or whose lives are at risk, how do they manage to ensure that they still conserve the environment, Mr. Yamba, at the same time protect their lives?
Thank you very much, Ms. Peter.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Peter.
Yeah, I think the watchword here is caution.
Okay.
Yeah, we should try to really go out when it is safe, and be watchful when it is not safe. Please don't go out. When we are designing our projects, we should make sure that in our logical framework, we should clearly identify the risks and the assumptions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't go out when, even if it is raw mud, that is not safe.
Don't try. Shimo has a lot of lessons to share. He has had first-hand experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for this to work right, for conservation to work, conservation organization need to work with the locals. I remember when we want to go to the field, for example, we call the locals and ask them, is it safe? If they say it's not safe, we're not going anywhere. And it somehow it has been working. And I think a month ago I was in Kupema, and it's one of the richest in terms of biodiversity, hosting protected areas, the Bayambo, the Bakosi National Park, and the newly created sanctuary for the conservation of reptiles, birds, and I've forgotten the other name. But then I think that local organizations are doing a lot in terms of trying to conserve regardless of the conflict. I mean, I've seen the works that are going on in the Bayambo Wildlife Sanctuary. I'm thinking about, because that's without necessarily doing any publicity for them. I've seen what they are doing there with the locals, and it works. And gradually, as peace is returning, I think that conservation will get back into its feet. But now, when there is in a situation where some of these national parks or protected areas of biodiversity hotspots are not accessible, what do we do? We rely on the new concept of citizen scientists. We train local people,
the inhabitants
to do the conservation
themselves,
because they know the area. They can speak with the whosoever, the non-state angle in their dialect. And for us, we're kind of foreign and we cannot speak the dialects in those areas
as much as they
can. So we have to rely on citizen scientists. Yeah, I mean, and it works somehow, because during this period of the crisis, a lot of research has been done in the Kimbi National Park, and the researchers relied on
The inhabitants, the indigens.
Yeah, citizen scientists.
Okay, thank you very much, Shimo. Now let's shift the spotlight away from conservationists and look at the environment from a general perspective vis-a-vis the Anglophone crisis, vis-a-vis conflicts generally. How can we as human beings adapt to wars and conflicts as much as possible so that we don't hamper the environment that much? Because the crisis is still raging on, you understand? In the midst of the crisis, what can be done to ensure that as maybe the little effort we put in, we can still save some of these species we talk about?
Yeah, I think it still boils down to what we have earlier discussed to me. We still need to keep on doing the work to ensure that the environment is protected and conserved. Just taking upon ourselves, like the case of Boya, the waste issue, maybe we just talk to ourselves that no, we want to change. Just try to be civil. Make sure that you put the waste at designated areas where it can easily be collected, at least looking at the case of the waste. And also, one thing I noticed with the waste issue and the Malingo gutter smelling, there are some saloons around here. They channel water straight to these gutters. That's why constantly the gutters have water. And also SNEC should try to check their pipes. A lot of their pipes are bad, and so when the taps are flowing, you have water coming from left to right and draining into these gutters. So we should try to check on some of these things while the war is going on. Life is not moving on normal, but at least we should remedy some of these things so that life can continue.
And let me come in a bit before delving into your question. We forgot one aspect which is very, very important: the destruction of watersheds. The destruction of watershed is noticeable, especially in the northwest region. I talk with people who have worked with communities, and these watersheds are being destroyed. Just like the Mamba Mutus I was talking about, it is one of the most important. It is the most important watershed in Cameroon after the Adamawa Plateau, and we're trying to conserve, but then destruction, cutting down of trees is still going on.
It's still going on.
The fallout is that in the long run, right? Because this mountain, the waters, this mountain supply, they go into the Sanaga River, the Wuri River, and eventually empty themselves in the ocean. It means that eventually these waters will get dry because the watershed where they take their rice have been destroyed. And it is very, very important to let these communities know that destroying the watershed is like shooting themselves
in the foot.
Yeah, in the leg. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Shimo. Just adding into what you say, maybe any solution you want to propose for the adaptation in the face of the crisis.
Yeah, the general tendency is that in the face of crisis, everybody wants to survive, and surviving at times has its fallout on the environment. But then what I want to tell our fellow listeners, viewers, tell the communities out there is that while trying to survive, think about the kids. You're not thinking about yourself again. Think about your children. The more you're destroying the environment, the more you're destroying our water system, the more you're destroying, the more you're hunting our species. It is our children that will suffer the consequences, and of course the consequences will be very devastating in terms of climate change, in terms of biodiversity loss, in terms of pollution and
even the water we consume.
Absolutely. So people should survive while also making the environment to survive too.
Of course, as much as we glamour for human survival, we should equally try to strive for environmental survival, sustainability, because for us to survive, we need an environment to survive in, and if this environment is not there, then we cannot survive. And as Shimo Riley said, we think about our children and the generation to come. That is what we call sustainable use, sustainability, where because our parents before us used these natural endowments and we met it, and so we have to try as much as possible to ensure that the generation that comes after us, they should equally meet something. On that note, we are wrapping up with the program.
Yeah, and let me share with you one experience. I did an article on undercover conservationists, people who are doing conservation but not coming out as real conservation. That article was a very big success, celebrating these people who are risking their lives in conserving the biodiversity, in protecting the environment. And the article has been a very big success, massive success, being translated into Spanish, other languages, and published by other media houses across Africa. It was originally done for African Argument based in the UK, and it has been a very big success. I think that to encourage people who are risking their lives, we have to celebrate them too.
Yeah, that's true. And so maybe you should keep on doing some work in the community. Maybe Shimo to write a report to celebrate you. I'm hoping that in the next report my name will be mentioned there. Of course, so now we are wrapping up with the program. We are drawing the curtains for today's edition of the program Nature's Corner. It has been an exciting talk show today. I've enjoyed every bit of the program from start to finish. Hope you did as much. And of course, take another rendezvous again next week Thursday to join us. But just before we leave, we get the last words from Mr. Ako and Shimo. Mr. Ako, last words from you to the community.
Yeah, my last word, I'm calling on all stakeholders involved, especially in this agricultural crisis. Please, let's end it.
That's a watchword, let's end it. Okay, yeah. Shimo.
And I'm calling on the government and conservation organizations to create a special fund for the environment, the post-war environment. This special fund will be meant to handle everything that environment related that was destroyed as a result of war. Let's not just think about the houses and bridges. Let's also think about the environment. Post-war construction, post-war environment form.
All right, thank you very much, Shimo and Mr. Ako, for your beautiful solutions or propositions that you have given. Thank you very much, and it has been a pleasure hosting you both here, two knowledgeable men. And on this note now, I say I'm packing my bags out of the studio, but of course not without thanking Harris and Ruby and Rudolph rather, Harris and Rudolph for their technical expertise producing the program, handling the 1001 buttons, of course with supervision from the chief of techniques, that's Claudine Tamfu, and of course general supervision for this program came from the editor-in-chief Alizi Komilike, and general supervision from the manager of High Television Eno Ayok Humphrey. On this note, I tell you my name is JABI, KATY, and of course take another rendezvous again next week Thursday 3 p.m. for the program Nature's Corner. Meantime, stay tuned to High Television for other interesting programs. From us to you, it's bye bye.